For as long as humans have been around, we've had to deal with the threat posed by communicable diseases. These diseases spread when microbes such as viruses or bacteria are passed from one person to another. This can happen in a number of ways, from saliva droplets being spread by infected people doing things like coughing, sneezing or talking, to sexual contact, to eating or drinking contaminated sources of food or water. Vaccines can help us to avoid catching these diseases and becoming ill as a result by giving us immunity to them. Most vaccines, but not all, are a weakened or killed form of the microbe that causes the disease it's trying to prevent. This gives our immune system an opportunity to have a good look at it and create the antibodies needed to fight it off. This means that if we come across that microbe again, our immune system is able to recognise it and reproduce the antibodies required to stop us from getting seriously ill or potentially dying. But a vaccine doesn't just make the person receiving it safe. By receiving a vaccine, we also play a crucial role in protecting the people around us. Let's take the example of COVID-19. When this arrived on the scene in late 2019, it was a brand new virus that no one had ever been exposed to. This meant that no one anywhere in the world had any ready-made immunity to the virus that causes COVID-19. The fact that it was so new also meant that we had no vaccines in place. This meant that it spread through communities and around the world very quickly and with devastating effect. Vaccines help to stop this from happening by creating breaks in this chain. Let's take the example of measles. This is a disease that we are protected from by the MMR vaccine, which is part of the NHS vaccination schedule during childhood. The MMR vaccine prevents us from catching measles and becoming ill. Crucially, people who are vaccinated also can't pass measles on to anyone else they come into contact with. This means that every vaccination creates another break in the chain, making it very difficult for the disease to spread with the speed and ease that we saw with COVID-19. If very high numbers of people in society are vaccinated against a disease, we can make it almost impossible for a disease to spread. This is really important in protecting people who can't have vaccinations. For example, newborn babies or those living with conditions or illnesses that make it too dangerous for them to be exposed even to a weakened version of a microbe in a vaccine. We call this herd immunity. It doesn't give someone the same protection as being vaccinated, but it can be the difference between life and death for someone for whom vaccination is not an option. As a result of this impact, vaccinations have been responsible for saving hundreds of millions of lives. Smallpox is estimated to have killed 300 million people in the 20th century alone. Because of vaccination programs introduced around the world, the virus that causes smallpox has been completely eradicated, meaning that it is no longer something we see in the natural world. Despite this, in recent years, worrying trends suggest that vaccination rates are falling and that more people are becoming either hesitant or hostile towards the idea of being vaccinated. We've also seen a huge amount of fake news, misinformation and disinformation about vaccines being spread online through social media. Here are some quick facts that could help to ease any concerns you or the people around you might have about vaccines. Does the government force us to have vaccinations? The answer to this question is no. Receiving a vaccine or not receiving a vaccine is always a personal choice. In the case of children, that decision is usually made by a parent or guardian. If vaccines are good for our health, why do we get side effects after we have them? Experiencing side effects after a vaccination is entirely normal. Our immune system is busily creating lots of chemicals as it works out the recipe for the new antibodies it needs to produce. These same chemicals can make us feel unwell for a short period of time, until our immune system starts to settle back down when it's figured out how best to respond. How do we know that vaccines are safe and don't contain anything that's harmful to us? All new vaccines are put through a number of different trials, with the final stage being human trials with thousands of volunteers who are observed for months after receiving the vaccine. Once this trial is complete, the company producing the vaccine has to submit the results to an independent expert body which decides if it is safe and effective. In the UK, this is the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. Only then will the vaccine be recommended for use and granted a licence to be given in public. Every vaccine developed during the COVID-19 pandemic went through each step of this long and rigorous process. If vaccines are so effective, why do we need new versions of them? Viruses constantly change and evolve, trying to find new ways to become more effective at infecting people. This is why each winter we see a slightly different strain of the flu virus and why we therefore need a slightly different version of the flu vaccine to fight it off. Similarly, we've seen the emergence of several different variants of the virus that causes COVID-19. such as the Delta and Omega variants. It's possible that we might see new top-up vaccinations being developed that match up specifically against these new variants, making sure that vaccines give us the best level of protection possible. The development of new versions of a vaccine is not a sign that vaccination doesn't work. Quite the opposite. It shows the amazing ability of science to respond to a changing threat in order to keep us all safe and healthy.